Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Battle Rush seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which we have just 8 seconds to take our turn and 15 seconds to choose our cards in between rounds. That means that everything needs to be lightning fast, and today's deck is perfect for that. So let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Monsters Carapace Ogroids deck because it is almost like Ogroids were designed specifically for this event. Since we have so little time to take our turn, we want to slam a whole bunch of points down on the board quickly and not have to worry about complicated combos or order abilities, targeting specific units, all that type of stuff we don't have time to do, so Ogroids are incredible because they don't need that. There are some really huge cards for Ogroids, however, Ogroids are so popular in this event that we have done some things to not have exactly the established Ogroids list here. We're mixing it up a little bit so that we can fare a little bit better in those mirror matchups, which are fairly common in this event. So King Chrum, of course, is the biggest card in this deck because with 20 Ogroids in this deck, he has 20 base power, which means if you have at least 10 power on a unit in one row, play King Chrum in the other row, then you have a 20-point resilience body, which is just insane. Girdle Giant Strength, 10-point boost, and then if you have Might, you can potentially get 10-point boost again, either in the same round or save it for later and get some carryover from this. Yaga is one of the biggest changes we have made to this deck. Not usually something you'd see in Ogroid decks, but because Ogroids are so popular, and there are some really high power, low provision Ogroid cards that your opponent might play, or of course other factions might also get some engines boosted up that are low provision, then you can use Yaga to consume that, steal all their power, and it's pretty easy to get Sabbath since we have so many high base power cards, so in that way Yaga can be a great ace up your sleeve for some huge tempo swings. Then Tugo gives you some more boosts, decent base power as well. If you can get multiple cards tied up at the same amount of power, then you get even more value, but for the most part, that's kind of just a luxury. Witch's Sabbath, one of the other big changes we've made. Because we have so many high base power cards, that means we use this, we're going to get out a 20 base power King Chrum and other really high base power cards, so we'll get amazing value. If your opponent is also playing Ogroids, then we have a few other ways to make it so that they're not getting as much value as we are. If your opponent is not playing Ogroids, then of course you are getting so much more value than them that this card is probably the second best in our deck. Alzur's Double Cross, more consistency. Lord of Riptide, damage. Jotunn, high tempo. Ozzrel. This is another way we can mess with our opponents, particularly in mirror matchups, when if they also have some high base power cards in their graveyard, use Ozzrel, consume one of those high base power cards, then you play Witch's Sabbath. That way you avoid having them get their biggest card when you use Witch's Sabbath, and you still have all of your big stuff, so Witch's Sabbath becomes much better. You can also use Ozzrel when you aren't in a mirror matchup if you're about to summon out maybe something that doesn't have as big base power, but has some other passive ability that would be effective for your opponent. Use Ozzrel to consume that, and that way again Witch's Sabbath becomes a safer play for you. Golyat, more high tempo. Ogre Warrior, big finisher, assuming we have a lot of big cards already on the board. Ice Giant, mostly here to set up Jotunn. It's not terrible, but not going to be something you want to focus on too much. Phooca, play it early. We have so many high base power cards that you can trigger that Thrive pretty easily. Nekker Warrior, probably the weakest card in this deck, so if you see this, you probably want to mulligan it. Ice Troll, I'm not a huge fan. It is technically an engine, but it feels like by the time Might is active, you're not going to have a lot of time to power it up, so I don't love the Ice Troll, but it exists. Bridge Troll, also mostly just here to set up more Ogroid synergies, but if you do need to have Yaga consume a 4 provision cost card and your opponent doesn't have any yet, Bridge Troll is a natural target. And then Enraged Cyclops is, of course, the big 4 provision cost card, because you can get this up to 10 power very quickly and easily, and this is the big thing that if your opponent is playing Ogroids, you can target on their side with Yaga, and that way you get a humongous point swing from that. Then Nekker, more Thrive. Again, easy to trigger it because we have so many high base power cards. So there's a look at the deck, and again, Ogroids in this event are incredible because it takes so little for them to pop off. And although we've made this deck a little more unusual and a little more complicated to play, hopefully it helps give you that advantage in those mirror matchups. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and they'll go first. Okay, so it's Mobilization, so I'm assuming it's some kind of soldier spam, maybe Reavers, maybe the Centurion Royal Guards. Nekker, I mean, 1 is fine, 2 is probably overkill. Ice Troll, we can probably do better than that. Okay, Chrum obviously is much better than that, so that's great. Okay, it's Reaver Scout, can't exactly say I'm surprised about that. Honestly, I think we Lord Riptide turn 1. I actually think we legitimately Lord Riptide turn 1, immediately remove you. And just shut down, or at least slow down, the combo that they were obviously trying to set up there. Regis Bloodlust. Now that would have been a very interesting card for us to go after. Now, I have to imagine they're about to transform that into a Cursed Knight, I think is what's going to happen, because they do not exactly want to leave that on the board as is. Otherwise, that is a huge liability. Yeah, there you go. So that could have been a Lord Riptide target, but obviously we'd already committed him. Okay, so we are trying to get back up to 10 power or more in this row so that we can then get King Chrum with the resilience in the other row. And we've taken a little while before playing this Enraged Cyclops, so I think it's going to take a little bit before it actually goes up to 10 base power. There's the Reaver Hunters that I kind of expected to see, so that's what they were trying to set up with the other Reavers. So, I hate Reavers. On the other hand, I don't exactly feel like we have the moral high ground here playing what is a pretty ridiculously overpowered Ogroids deck at the moment, so, you know, maybe I'll just keep quiet on that front. But, okay, so there we go. We have 10 power or more on a unit in each row. That is, of course, subject to change with the Reaver spam, but we might be able to sneak in a Chrum. Does mean, of course, the Chrum will get hit once we play him, but I think we kind of need to do that now. Otherwise, we run the risk of just not being able to get that might condition, because the Reavers were going to make that tough. And they have now played more cards than us. Let's see how many points they put up here after the Reavers' damage. Not enough to catch us. After the next round of Reavers go off, that I'm not as sure about. Tell you what, I will drop you. Because I'd like to... I mean, we could have passed there. Yes. I would like to win on even and then still have the resilience, which we can now do. Okay, and we draw into Girdle, Giant Strength. That can potentially give us some carryover, which could make it worth us pushing a little bit here. Ice Giants, a Nekker Warrior, let's dump that. Yaga, I'm a little conflicted on that as well. Well, for what it's worth, this is a target for us to consume on our own end. So I will push a little bit here. We did win on even, so we could have just drive past and had card advantage going into round 3. But since we are starting with a 10-point body on the board, and we know they're trying to spam Reavers, and that means they're trying to get a long round, might we be able to do some things here to reduce the length of round 3, make it really hard for them to get good value from the Reavers, and then we can use Witch's Sabbath, with a humongous King Chrum and other high base power units coming out and cause some trouble for them. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're just deliberately reducing the length of the round. What if we go here? And then, I don't know, do we want that to just be triggering the second round of Girdle, Giant Strength in round 3, or do we actually want that to happen in this round? Yaga is now becoming a bit of a liability here. You're not great either. I think we're passing now, I suppose. Might have, with some leader ability charges, been able to get up high enough we at least get some boosts on Ogre Warrior, or maybe... You know, you do that, play it melee row, you could get the Zeal and Yaga. But I think the big thing here is that we force them into using more of the Reaver setup. I mean, granted, Reaver decks are Reaver decks. Every single thing is designed to play and replay Reavers, even from their graveyard, potentially, so we might not necessarily be out of the woods just yet. But we do now have card advantage. It is a shorter round 3. I am skeptical of Yaga, although technically we should be able to get Zeal if we go Witch's Sabbath first. Let's dump you. Ozzrel... I think we have enough big cards in our graveyard that could work still. Yeah, I think we should still be able to make that work. Ooh. Ada is a little bit concerning. Let's do this immediately. Deliberately going range... Oh, if I had remembered that they did the Regis Bloodlust thing, amazing. Amazing Ozzrel target. Fantastic. That is what Ozzrel is for. But I was thinking to myself, oh, this is just a Reavers deck. Surely they don't have anything big in their graveyard. We don't need to be worried about that. But don't worry. We have the Zeal, as I was saying, which means Yaga can come in and consume that big card anyway. And they realize that that's really all we needed to do to seal this win. So they'll pass, and we will emerge victorious. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here. And they'll go first. Okay, so we do have Chrum. That's obviously huge. Nekker could be the way we start the round, depending on what they start off with. A couple Enraged Cyclopses. That's good. I think we might dump this Ice Troll. I'm not a big fan of Nekker Warrior, though. Okay, yeah. Lower end. Our stuff is not so great here. Let's see what they begin with. Okay, so if it's Dwarven Chariot, then I think it should be safe for us to go Nekker. Just curious to see if they're going to use, what is it, the Berserker? Is that the name of the one with the armor that deals damage every turn? So if they'd started with that, then they could have done some serious damage to our Nekkers. They might still remove one of them if they are to do that now. But they will not. So now let's go... either Phooca or Cyclops. We'll go Phooca. This means that maybe the Enraged Cyclops might not immediately go up to 10 base power, but I think we'll still have enough time that we'll be okay there. Ah, okay, maybe that's why they didn't immediately react to those Nekkers, because they were going to have a way to deal with them anyway. Let's do this, though. Generally okay with that Phooca getting damaged, because if it gets damaged by 1, it makes it easier for us to boost it by 2 on the next turn. Okay, which, because you now have the potential for 4 damage, which would be enough to one-shot Phooca, especially after that damage, I think we do go Ice Giant here rather than Enraged Cyclops, because this we just saw. Because that one took, at the end of our turn, switched into a 10. That means this would have taken a little bit longer, so it would not have immediately procced the Thrive there. You gonna go for the Destruction, or are you going for... Okay. Let's do that. You need a little bit of time still, and that Dwarven Skirmisher might be eyeing you. That would not be a bad play on their part. Dwarf Berserker, this is the card I was referring to before. It will hit somebody. Okay, I think we go with you. And then we would really like to use a Leader Ability Charge so we can get Might, because they have poked a lot of our units that had... close to, if not exactly 10 power. Granted, you are about to go up to 10 at the end of this turn, but oh, wow. Okay, well, that really stinks. That fundamentally changed how I was about to take this turn. So I was going to boost you up with Leader Ability to a 10, and then we could have played Chrum. But now, at least, as long as this doesn't get poked, we can go Leader Ability on this next turn. Okay. Which, granted, you did, but we can go... Leader Ability there. Now we can go Chrum. We have Might, which means you get Resilience, which means we're in the lead, and we have more Resilience than they do. Sim loss. Okay, now what is it for? Presumably something they're going to try to use to mess with Chrum, or they're going to just boost themselves. But I think at this point, let's see, how are they doing points-wise? We could Ogre Warrior. It's not amazing, but maybe if we do that... It does get to be just enough, I think. Obviously, we don't want to use Witch's Sabbath, so if they play further here, we're just going to have to let them win this round. But then we're going to... Okay, well, they should not have been looking to play Broover. This is not the right circumstance to play him. He will not give them any additional boosts either. I mean, if we got any points in round 1 from Witch's Sabbath, we would have been able to win it, but that's a little disappointing. I mean, that was their best card that they just threw away in a terrible way, so that's why I'm not too concerned about that, especially because in round 2 we will have way more resilience than they do. So we could just dry pass and have card advantage permanently if they don't try to push. If they do try to push, then we have a lot more points on the board than they do. Now Witch's Sabbath works, so that's also big. Yaga, it's probably too short of a round for that to be all that effective. So Zoltan's Company is how they should have set up Broover in the previous round, but they did not do that well. Let's go Golyat here. Now we have Might, which means we'll get more armor on Riptide. We are out-tempoing them, so they'll pass. The tricky thing is, for them, is we have Witch's Sabbath, which means we can get these big units back. So that is why it's okay for us to be playing such high-tempo stuff early. We can still receive that value again in round 3. Not really sure Yaga is great in this matchup specifically. Tugo is nice. Yaga, I mean, we can use it to consume their highest base power card, which would be that. Maybe we do that to get rid of Broover, just in case. I mean, he does have armor. Or rather, he wouldn't have armor in this circumstance, so I think it is actually okay. Let's start with you, Tugo, because then you get yourself up to a 10, which means we'll immediately have 1/2 of might. We could go for something in this row, potentially. Get ourselves up there now. If we were to say, do this. Okay, granted... Okay, I will do that. So we are back on might. Granted, they do still have a leader ability charge, so they actually do have a way to get Broover back up on arm, and that is also weight, so yeah, it probably was worth going with Ozzrel first there. Okay, their biggest card is Broover right now, though, so this is a little bit earlier than I would usually like to be playing Riptide, but it is a way to force them into finding a way to give Broover armor here, and even if they do find a way to do that, which will take them a turn, but they will eventually be able to with that chariot, then, okay, well, they'll go tempering in that case. We do still have a big head start here, though. Yeah, we do have might, and you are an engine, so I think we go for you in that case. And then Ozzrel just eyeing what we have a 10 in our graveyard is probably still going to be the best choice again. Ozzrel, technically, to consume Broover would have been the safe choice. I was just a little bit impatient, but that might have been the way to go, given how they did still have some ways to get armor back on Broover, because I had hoped that maybe, given how he wasn't going to get his deploy ability, we might have been able to get him out on the board, not have him be too much of an issue, but as we're seeing here, between tempering and the Dwarven Chariot, they are still able to make some things happen with him. And so they have some good cards, they have some good combos. After Broover's boosts there, it's close, but this should be enough for us to finish the job. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here. And they'll go first. Okay, so Nekker, we can certainly start off with that. Enraged Cyclops, we could play that relatively early. Not a huge fan of Nekker Warrior, let's dump that. And then Ice Troll can probably dump that as well. Chrum is obviously a huge pickup. Okay, AA. Yeah, saw the engineering solution, thought that it might have been Siege deck, which means I was gonna go Nekker, but that's maybe not the greatest of choices anymore. So why don't we instead start straight off with the Enraged Cyclops? So that'll go straight to 10 base power in that case. Okay, that does take a long time to play, so they are living in a dangerous world here. Alright, so what if we then... Guess we'll just go Ice Giants. I mean, I would like... I wish they didn't hit that guy, but of course they were going to with the Reinforced Ballista. I would like to get Might if we can, but it's not the most feasible thing. Would do that. This. Cancel leader ability. Now we do have Might, which means we are getting armor on Riptide, which we could use to hit the Ballista reasonably effectively. They do have Girdle. That's really bad news for us. I mean, I guess it's a good thing that they're using it here and not on something like Chrum instead. But we could go straight into the Clash. I don't love that. But we don't have great alternatives, to be honest with you. In large part just because they've made the Nekker really awkward for us to use, and we haven't quite been able to keep our cards on 10 power because of their damage. Oh, but now I suppose we actually can do this now. Granted, it's late at this point to be playing Nekker. Okay, we can certainly catch them, unfortunately. Or can we? Golyat is... I have to do this, and then we're gonna have to... Right, I did right-click. Okay, well, granted, actually needed to get that second leader ability used there, even though I didn't actually want it. But we do just barely pass them. We couldn't use Chrum there because we didn't have Might, or at least we wouldn't have had Might. Maybe if we had proactively used some leader ability charges, we could have made it happen, but a little unfortunate there in that the big resilience value is not going to be so much a thing here because we played one more card than them. We're probably about to dry pass, but let's see. Ice Troll, we can certainly do better than that, I think. Okay. So I think we are probably looking to pass here. I mean, we... unless, hear me out. Unless we do that. Then we do that. And then we do that. Yeah, you know, you see, the thing is, I was originally going to go Tugo first, which we actually did need to do. Okay, well now, that actually helped us. oddly enough. I would really appreciate if you didn't continue to boost that card, but I need this to be on 10 power so that we can then play Chrum and get the 20-point resilience, which may or may not end up being worth it. They also do have Sunset Wanderers, which I've only just realized. But this was also an extremely predictable play for them to use. Let's go Jotunn. That way we definitely have at least 10 points in this row, so we can drop Chrum, melee row. I mean, Northern Realms in general is very engine-focused, so you would think that the longer this round goes, the shorter we make round 3, and therefore the more effective our strategy will be. So now we can play Chrum. Of course, we will see... Oh, and I forgot about that. That does give us even more tempo. They are about to have to get Sunset Wanderers out here, which they probably didn't want to do. It is going to be giving them more tempo, of course, but we might just try to keep this... go full-out bleed round 2 and rely on that 20-point carryover. So we could go Ozzrel here, and then choose Golyat. And now the Ogre Warriors are pretty decent at this point, and we probably wouldn't want them in a short round 3 anyway. You're obviously going to want to go for him, although you probably should have tried to boost him up more. But I think in general, we've messed with their plan quite considerably. They probably did not intend to have this round go nearly this long. Now, of course, we have played more cards than them, so although we do have a somewhat sizable lead at the moment, that's a little misleading. I think we will still use this Ogre Warrior, because if we don't, then it's going to be pretty bad in round 3. But it's worth 16 points here, and we're not that far away from Tugo giving us multiple boosts. In fact, they realize at this point they cannot stop us, especially with that big resilience, and so they forfeit. Alright, so going up against Skellige here, and they'll go first. Alright, so we have Chrum, that's obviously huge. We could start off with Nekkers, although with Reckless Flurry, that's going to be a little bit tough for us to make that happen. The Enraged Cyclopses, whatever the plural of that is, those are solid. Not a huge fan of the Ice Troll, though. Yaga could be big if we can get the Zeal by having Sabbath, but that's, again, going to be a little bit tricky with Reckless Flurry here. Not entirely sure what Wagenberg is up to. Okay, I think we at least attempt to sneak in these Nekkers and see what happens here. We'd like to go Cyclops next, and I'm not sure if we have enough Ogroids for that to be immediate. I mean, they're clearly going for armor. Oh. I'm surprised they're going Reckless Flurry, then. I mean, you'd think that might be Onslaught in that case. Okay, good. You are going to turn into a 10 on this turn, otherwise we are potentially at risk of you getting shut down fairly quickly there. Matza, making this round go longer. Okay, I mean, that might not be a terrible thing for us. Might even try to sneak in these Nekkers as well in that case, or we could go for the other Enraged Cyclops. Sure, I mean, you did have us draw into another Ogroid, which means we still have enough for this to flip over into a 10. So we are already on Might, which is really nice. Okay, so you are going to get, I would assume, a lot of boosts, so not a terrible thing if we were to get a little bit aggressive going after you. Let's do this. I mean, we're basically, given how they've made this round very long, we're going to play this a little bit slower than we might usually play it. But you are 4 provisions, so if we get up to Sabbath, which we are not quite at just yet, then we could consume you with Yaga. So let's see, our bigger row is our melee row, and certainly after these Thrive procs, we're definitely on Sabbath now. So we could use Yaga if we would like to at this point and consume you. You haven't really gotten boosted yet, although you're about to be. Renfree's Gang. Okay, I mean, that is a... You don't have another copy of that. That's good information to have. But why don't we go here? We should have Sabbath. We can consume... you're actually bigger. Sure. I mean, that they're both engines. One mostly for armor, the other mostly for boosts. Some question as to whether, you know, how much do we buy into them doing all this armor stuff? Is that really the primary focus, or was that boost potential there more concerning? Not entirely sure. Okay. And so we're doing pretty well here from a point standpoint. I think we can drop this because we do have 10 points in each row, or at least one unit with 10 or more points in each row. So we get the resilience. Still a huge lead on even. And so they have not come close to catching us here. Yes, we could consume with Yaga. I think it would have to be one of our units, one of these ice giants, but at this point, they are in a really tough spot here because they can hit Chrum. It's not enough to catch us, though. It does reduce our carryover, but we still have carryover, which means we don't need to play anything at all in the next round, and it is still taking them several turns to catch us here because that's still not enough. So I think we have functionally already won this game, because we now have 3 card advantage and a 12-point body still on the board, so we could drive past here, have huge card advantage in round 3, or we could choose to push aggressively, and obviously we have that card advantage, which means it'd be very hard for them to stop us. So, take your pick. I mean, maybe I'll be kind of nice and give them a chance to take a round 2. Because we also are looking at Ozzrel, who can consume King Chrum from our graveyard in round 3, which gives us amazing tempo as well. Yeah, it does very much look like they were trying to go the bonded unit route, but as you can see, that just does not have nearly enough tempo, and we will continue to gain significant card advantage at this point because, well, we have 6 more cards than them right now, and at this point I think they've realized there's just no way they can stop us. They're just going to throw everything in rounds, even though they had already won the round there. Because I think they recognize with our 7-card advantage that for all intents and purposes, this game is over at this point. Ice Giant, not amazing. Think we can do better than that. Granted, Bridge Troll, maybe not so great after all. Peasant Militia. Okay, I'm also not entirely sure what our highest card in our deck is right now. We'll go Nekker. I mean, the obvious thing for them to do is Reckless Flurry and destroy it. In case they don't do that for some strange reason, we can get them boosted up. Or they'll do that. Didn't even remember that they had a Seagull, but sure. Okay, now we could go Phooca. And now it would at least take 2 leader abilities to remove all of our Thrive engines, and we can also get Bridge Troll out on our next turn, and that way, if they do some of that stuff, which, since this is their last turn, you'd think they would, but I mean, again, I think they know at this point that for all intents and purposes, this match is over, so they'll forfeit, and we will win with 6, 7 cards to spare. So there's a look at a Monsters Ogroids deck for the new Battle Rush seasonal event. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. And take a look at our Battle Rush playlist to see previous decks that we've used in this event as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.